Hello, everyone. What I am doing this week instead of a lecture, I've had some requests for a tutorial for setting up your final project portfolio. So the way I'm going to show you is just to kind of get you started and so you know what information to include and maybe some suggestions. This is not the only way. I am by no means an expert in PathBright. I'm going to set up a skeleton because I don't want you to rely on what I'm giving you. I want you to show your creativity and use your 21st century skills. But I do want to provide some guidance so you know what type of information to include in the portfolio. So as you can see on the screen, I am in my PathBright account. And what I did first, and I apologize, there we go. I was getting some background noise on my end. So what I did was, if you go into, you can see you've got some items here, my library, your profile, and all of that stuff. Over to the left, if you click on portfolios, if you're not on this screen, it would take you to where you can see what you have started. Right now, you probably have a showcase of all of your work. But if you look here above where you were, if you press Create Portfolio, and click on this tab, put in your title, and if you can see in the background, I already created one that says EDU 696 Final Portfolio. Include your name on it as well, just for clarity. And it gives you some options. I'll just title this Demo. And it gives you some, excuse me, options. If you go to Style and Settings, you can choose how you want each of the items that you include in your portfolio, how they'll look in your screen, and they can be changed once you have them in there. So the one that I'll show you just has a basic grid, and then I've been moving them around and resizing and playing around with it. You can decide if you want it lighter or darker. Your categories, these are the ones that are already in here. You can go to edit categories and then rename these. So if you want to name this project learning outcome, you just simply can type it and so on and change these, however, based on how you're going to organize your portfolio. I'm not going to save that because I'm not going to save this particular portfolio. In the settings, it's just what you're making visible and who can see them and all that fun stuff. So this is just make sure that when you're finished that we're able to see it and that you're sharing it with us. So once I notice it's set up this portfolio, and so now I can go in and edit. But what I'm actually going to do is go back to my, and if I can click on here, so I'm going back just to undo it. And you can see here's what I just created. Well, I don't want this anymore. So if you notice, I can go to more and I'll click delete because I don't need that in there. So I always like to keep it nice and neat. So I do want to continue working in this one. So I can click on it. I'm ignoring this for right now. You can click education or whatever. I'll do that just so you can see. Now, what I did, there's information that you can add in. So here's the title, the final project. So you can put an overview, whatever you think would be necessary to the background. Now, what I did was, if you click edit, here's where you can start adding your work. Now, I had files that I had previously included in here, which you've all been doing that since we started the course. So you could just simply go to your PathBright library and see here all of the things that I've been uploading. So I can just simply click on any of those and import them. So that's why it's been important throughout the whole course to start building your arsenal, as it were, of your work. Now, the things that you're required to include, you need to have each PLO, and you need to have some type of an artifact to demonstrate that you've mastered or made improvements in that particular learning outcome. So here for the title, I put the number And then this is where you would put a description or whatever information to describe what your focus is. My apologies for coughing. Hopefully that didn't come across too loudly. If I want to edit, I would simply click Edit Item. There's the title. I can go in and write the description. I can update the text entry. See, this takes me right here, and it's just a text box. And then I click Done Editing when I'm all finished. And then I can go back into my portfolio. So then now I've decided, okay, I'm on PLO1, and I need to find my particular lesson, narrative, document, video, whatever it was that you have to show growth or mastery of this particular program learning outcome. And so you would just upload it. Now, if you notice, I had mine in 3 sections. So I decided to do the project learning outcome here. Here's the artifact, and then below it, this is where you put some type of justification. So why do we care about your work? Why should we be impressed? How is your work relevant and connected to your project learning outcome? So I'd kind of put some sentence starters and some ideas. Again, this is not required. I'm just trying to help you think through this. So you could say this video demonstrates PLO1 by, and you would offer that explanation. Or my ability to do whatever will benefit my students and or my school community by. So if that kind of gives you an idea. You may want to add additional works in here. So if you say, no, I'm going to have 4 boxes because that's what makes me happy, that's perfectly fine. Or if you decide, you know what, I want this explanation to go up at the top. Oop. Wait, let me backtrack. Sorry, I misclicked. I need to click Edit. So here's where I can add more work like what you've been doing all along to your portfolio. Or I can decide that I want this to be down here. And you have to grab it just right, which, like I said, I'm not a master. But if you notice how just in moving it around, I start changing the size of, if I can grab it. So now instead of having them side by side, I have changed the size of them and I've changed the order of them. I can use this to move and change the size or change the location. And at first it looks weird, but once you click Done Editing, you go back, it keeps asking me to share it with you. So see, I've reordered where I put the PLO, then I put the justification, and then I put the artifact. So it doesn't matter how you set it up. Do it to where it reflects who you are and who you are as an educator and what you know. Once you have everything set up and you have all of your program learning outcomes included and everything finalized, then of course you would click share. You may want to put this as, so Guenthner final project. So then I copy the link and then I can share it in the classroom as directed. So make sure that you are reading those requirements really carefully. The other piece that you have to do as part of your assignment, and I'm going to get into my Canvas account while I'm speaking, and mine may look a little bit different than yours in some aspects, but once I get into the assignment, then it will look the same. So if you go to week 6, the final paper in ePortfolio, notice you should already know your program learning outcomes, which are here. And so once you have gone through and created and are gathering your portfolio items, the other thing is to have a narrative reflection. So what that looks like, if you come down here into your directions, you're going to take one paragraph. So you're not writing multiple paragraphs. It's about being concise and clear and articulate, and that's super important. Many things in education really require that concise writing. So one paragraph, for each of the I keep saying project, program learning outcomes. So you are going to rank them. So if there are 8 project learning outcomes, let's say I think in importance that number 4 is the most important to what we do or in terms of teaching and learning. I would rank that as number 1. And then I would explain why it's number 1 and then include all of the other information here. For those of you who are not actively teaching, notice there's a section right here telling you what you need to do. So it's important that you look there so you don't get frustrated or have that question. So again, it's about application here in the narrative, and so that would be a paper that you would turn in, still following APA format, using appropriate title and reference page, and so on. Here, your written communication, this tells you, of course, the expectation, and notice the 3 scholarly sources in addition to the textbook. So you should have your textbook and 3 scholarly sources. These usually are journal entries. These are something from, for example, the National Council of Teacher of Mathematics, something like that. Finding, there are many credible websites, but again, they don't necessarily count as scholarly sources. So you can have other information from sites, but just make sure you have these scholarly sources. Make sure you've got your reference pages and so on. And there, what you're wanting to do also is submit it. So let me scroll up to the top. You will submit a link to your ePortfolio and attach your paper portion of the assignment in a week 6 discussion. So what you're doing is putting your portfolio so all of us can access it and we can read your narrative so we can all give you feedback. So you can go back in and make adjustments, think about some of the things that were mentioned to you, just be a reflective educator and a reflective learner and go back and make those changes. So the earlier you submit in week 6, the better able we will all be to give you some feedback before grading. The other thing is it also gives you time to implement those changes. It won't do you any good if you're waiting until Saturday to post your week 6 discussion. Even though you would get a grade for it, you're not going to have time more than likely to go back and adjust your portfolio or your narrative before the course ends on Monday night. And there's no late work allowed on week 6. So Monday at midnight in your time zone is it. So you will not be able to turn it in on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday for any credit. So be aware of that. Get feedback while you can. This is one of the few times where you are turning it in, getting feedback, and then being able to redo it. So again, go through, read all of this carefully. You may want to print it out onto copy it and paste it into a document and print it out so that way you have it as you're working and you can go back and forth and use this as a checklist. Did I have one artifact? At least one artifact demonstrated mastery for each of your program learning outcomes. Do I have each of those? Check them each off. Make sure your portfolio, look at this, professional in appearance. So this is not the time where you're putting that cute picture of your kids eating spaghetti with their hands or whatever. Make sure that you're including, if you wanted to, a professional photograph or anything that shows, look at this, use of technology. So if I'm looking at each of your portfolios for a potential position in my school, this is where you're showing me who you are. So think of it that way. How are you going to get that job that you're wanting as a result of this degree? This is something you'll be able to take with you and use in your real world interview process. It's a great way to show potential bosses, principals, whatever your role might be, how you can grow, that you're teachable and you have ideas of your own, and you also have mastered technology and, of course, the practices in education that are expected. Again, narrative, and then all of your expectations. So hopefully that helps, and I will see you in the classroom.